And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'll get the right camera on there and we'll be ready to go. Good to see you today on Ask the Theologian. Glad you're here. I'm Dr. Randy White, and we take your biblical, theological, and worldview questions and try to do our best with them, make some good sense out of them, have fun with them, and be biblical and be rightly dividing. That's what we do here, and we are glad that you have joined us. If you've got a question, if you happen to be watching live on randywhiteministries.org or youtube.com, you can put the word question. If you're not watching live, or you just want to submit something anonymously, perhaps, you can go to randywhiteministries.org. There's a Ask a Question button right up there at the top, and we'll take that. If you put your email in, we'll let you know when we answered that. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can submit that question. This is Wednesday. You know what we do on Wednesday. We have Bible study about 10 minutes after 6, Mountain Time, and would look forward to seeing you. Tonight we study 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. So, Wednesday's a good day, right? Right in the middle of the week to do a little bit of Bible study and to be ready to go. So, what are your questions today? Let's start out with one that came in Monday from Mrs. Bubba. How's that? We've had questions from Bubba before, but now we got a question from the Mrs. Since we are made, the question is, since we are made in the image of God, and angels are made in the image of God, that is what I propose in Systematic Theology, a biblical literalist approach available at dispensationalpublishing.com. Well, I won't go into all the reasons there, but you can check that on our Unveiling the Unseen conference as well that just took place recently. Since we're made in the image of God, we're going to take that assumption and go with that. Angels made in the image of God, that's the assumption we're going to take. Not everyone would agree with me on that. How did the offspring become giants? Nephilim. Mrs. Bubba has a very good question here. I don't know. Let's see if we can put it together. That, by the way, I like the question because that questions the assumption of the whole premise and says, okay, do we have a problem with the with the premise? What's going on here? Now, let's try to back up and look at this. First of all, in order to mix angels and humanity, they have to be close enough to interbreed. And that is what appears to be the occasion in Genesis chapter 6. And this is obviously one of those theories that not everyone agrees with, but it's also a theory that goes back a long, long time. And that means there's a lot of work on it that if you're going to deny it, you need a pretty good argument. So let's go with it. And so they do come together. They make Nephilim. Now, couple of options. What kind of curse, other than location, do the fallen angels have? Is there something inherent in that? Being out of their domain of heaven, being cast down to the earth, does that make with them a physical DNA kind of issue that would change? Now, we could speculate on that, and, I suppose in many cases we'd say, yeah, that's true. And I think we could even argue that we see to some degree changes like that in humanity after the Garden of Eden, certainly after the flood, of course, their lifespan begins to go way down, which, is that a DNA thing or is it an environment thing? Obviously, we can argue, and it's virtually impossible to ever prove anything because we can't put it through a test. So it's a model that we have to put together here. But when the demons, as we would call them today, that followed Satan when they were cast out of their realm. I think in the episodes, I made an argument that their nature did not change, rather their location changed. What difference does that location make? Does it make a mutation? I think because you and I are able to mutate, we would say, okay, they would be able to mutate. They mutate. We didn't, or we mutated differently. Put all that together, you can make Nephilim. There's one possibility, again, not perfectly able to carry that out, but that is one to prove that. But that is one possibility. The other possibility is that when you have the curse that comes upon Satan, now, I should say upon the serpent, if we put that equal to Satan, now you are going to crawl on your belly, eat the... Is that just on Lucifer? Is it even on Lucifer? We had a number of questions about that, a number of things that, again, we can't completely solve, but is there a sense in which the demonic do inherit a curse at that point that does change their nature? Now, that's not the easiest argument to make, because later on we see, the devil coming as an angel of light, which is what Lucifer means, basically, angel of light or bearer of light. So can you make that connection to say there is a curse in their DNA? So both made in the image of God, one has a curse in their DNA. Now, so there's two possibilities there. Again, one is there was a mutation. Second possibility is that there was a curse that was given probably at the fall. A third possibility is that I don't think I like this possibility, but Luca keeps trying to talk me into it. A third possibility is that we're made differently in the image of God. So they're kind of in the image of God, and we're kind of in the image of God, and God is God. He hasn't convinced me, as you can tell there. Did I say it right? I want to be fair to Luca. We should put on the Luca cam here. But they're kind of in the image of God. We're kind of in the image of God. But I just don't know if it says we're kind of in the image of God. Now, we're not God. We're an image of God. But can you have this image and that image, and how much can you tweak between those images? It certainly is a possibility that you can put there. Now, one passage that would come into it is in Psalm chapter 2. We have in Psalm 2, what is it, on the left side of your screen here, verse 5. Thou hast made him a little lower than the angels, and hast crowned him with glory and honor. Okay. What is man that thou art mindful of him, the son of man that thou visitest him? Thou hast made him a little lower than the angels. Now, that on its surface does kind of seem to say, okay, man is lower than the angels. Which then would say, we're not quite as much in the image of God as they are in the image of God. Or they're not in the image of God, but they're better than the image of God. Either one of those, you end up with some problems, wouldn't you agree? I got a nod. So when you really dig into this text, there are two things about this Psalm 2 passage. One is, in Psalm, you can't totally tell it. What is man that thou art mindful of him? Sounds like it's talking about mankind. But even as you go to the next the next phrase there, the Son of Man that thou visitest him. Now, that at that point in the Scripture, Son of Man is not a designation that reminds us, oh, okay, this is the Messiah. But I think probably almost exclusively, when we study Psalm 2, we're going to end up saying that is a messianic psalm. So what we've got is, this is not about mankind in general, but this is about the Messiah. And then there's another interesting thing about it. In verse 5, thou hast made him a little lower than the angels. Let's see if I've got Strong's here. I may not have it. Yeah. Okay. So thou hast made him a little lower than the angels. I don't know if you can see that right there, but I am going to go ahead and put it, if you can read Hebrew right there, that word, it's Hebrew word 430, Hebrew word 430. It is the word Elohim. Well, that's kind of interesting. Thou hast made him a little lower than Elohim. I don't, check this, Luca, I'm not sure. Does the King James translate Elohim as angels in any other place? There may be places where they do that. Here we've got the Quick Strong's look, and it says gods in the ordinary sense, but especially used in the plural with the article of the supreme God, occasionally applied by way of deference to magistrates, and sometimes as a superlative, plural, angels. Okay, so there must be a few in there. Judges. There's a number of different ways to put that, but you do have the interpretive question here. The Son of Man, the Messiah, made a little lower than God. He made himself of no reputation. Is that more of a, the question is, can you put Psalm 2 and say, look, they're different, man is a little lower than angels? I'm not sure if it's all that much of a cut and dried case on that. Let me, let's jump across the page here, because we have in Hebrews chapter 2, beginning in verse 6, but one in a certain place testified, saying, what is man that thou art mindful of him, or the son of man that thou visitest him? Now, sorry, I had the screens backwards there. Now you got my face. In Hebrews 2, he's definitely talking about Jesus. That's going to become explicit here, but he connects Hebrews 2 to make it messianic. We suspected it was. Hebrews does it for us. Okay. Verse 7, thou hast made him a little lower than the angels. Let's see, can we put angels up here? And okay, we've got angelos here. I don't think in the Greek we ever have any of the various words for God made to be angels. Now, Hebrews 1 and 2 does go on to talk about messengers as angels, and you question, is this human or what, or you know, angelic? What's going on here? So coming back here, thou hast made him a little lower than the angels. Thou crownedest him with glory and honor, and did set him over the works of thy hands. Now, you do come in Hebrews to say, this is talking about Jesus, not mankind. So are we talking positional, or are we talking in their very being, in their very makeup? Hard to know, and hard to say, honestly, which way to go on that. Certainly some room for debate, though, I think is what we want to say. Do we have any other Elohim as angels? No, that's the only one. Okay, but there are Elohim as judges. There's Elohim as magistrates. Some of the things like that are put in there contextually. That I would just say, Mrs. Bubba, we would want to really dig into that. That's probably an hour or a day or 3-day kind of thing to say, okay, what am I going to do with Psalm 2 in regard to this question? So once again, let me bring down to the three answers that I am going to propose. One is when they fell, their nature did not change, but environmentally, eventually it does, and that brings about a DNA issue. Two is that there was a curse put on them, probably at Genesis chapter 3, and that curse changed their DNA. Three, the images are not quite exactly the same, and there, I more argued that their role was different, but there's room to argue that there's some difference in the image of one. Nothing that can be seen with the human eye, but is there something there? If you take a horse and a donkey, they're both of the equine family, and they can interbreed then, but we can see that a horse and a donkey is different. You don't have to, have a advanced degree in agronomy to figure that out. So is there a variance in the images? I think we would certainly say angels are not men and men are not angels. But is it more of a role kind of thing that's given them? And with that role, some empowerment, some knowledge one can have that the other can't have. I think we could argue there. Very interesting question. We probably ought to dig into that so that Mrs. Bubba has a full degree of answering and understanding that particular issue. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Bubba, for that. I appreciate it. And Old Man Bob says, what if the casting out of angels is more about being denied access to higher dimensions? I kind of lean that way. It's a location thing, just like when we fell, mankind. It's a location thing. Being denied access to higher dimensions could change some things ultimately. Even, again, to go back to the flood, and when there was the environmental change in mankind and mankind started living less, do you have the same thing with the angels? And what kind of mutation does that make in their DNA? Could be there. Thank you. Axioff Theopostolos. Did I get that right? Put on human flesh. Speaking of the work that is done there, the messianic work there. And I had a little word about the volume. I got that taken care of. Perhaps since Jesus has at least a partial human body and is sitting at the right hand of the Father, are they not then in a physical place? From Donald in Virginia, Daleville, Virginia. Good to see you. Okay, let's take this a little bit. Since Jesus has at least a part of a human body, I'm gonna go with he's got the full. I don't know that it makes a whole lot of degree of difference in the question. But let's say he's got the fully human body as he's ascended into heaven today. It is glorified, no doubt about it. So, perhaps we could argue this difference or that difference. But so let's just make it, if you'll allow me, Donald, he has got or he's got a human body and is seated at the right hand of the Father. Are they, I think the they here, we always like to be persnickety about pronouns. I think the they is the angels. Let me know if I'm wrong there. Are they then not in a physical place? Yeah, I think they are. Donald suggests maybe Pluto. I think they are in a physical place. I think that the Lord seated at the right hand of the Father, which could be the they also, that they are in a physical place. I think that heaven, the throne room of God, is in a physical place. I think that what's the opposite of physical? Ethereal, I'll get that pronounced right. Ethereal, metaphysical, but let's not go that. They're not in the spirit zone. They are in a physical place. In the book of Exodus, when Moses is given the instruction on how to build the tabernacle, that's a model of what is in heaven, a to-scale model, if you read that closely. And therefore, what is seen on earth is an image of what is in heaven. This is why there's such meticulous detail given to the measurements, the colors, all the things that are taking place there. And you can't really have a physical model of a spiritual thing. So here's a physical model of a physical thing. I think that God has, I argue in systematic theology, a biblical literalist approach, that God has always had a body. The second person, second member of the Trinity, has always been in bodily form. And if there's a body, there has to be, you're right, a physical place for the body. You can't have that which is physical not have a location to go to. So that brings about all sorts of issues in our theology and in our thinking and in pre-Genesis even, that there's got to be in some way, this changes once you get to the expanse of creation, but there's got to be some coordinates there. This is a physical thing taking up physical space. It's mass. It's got weight, all the things with mass and weight. It equals time. All these things that take place. Now then, he creates the angels, which have a physical body as well. They've got to be in a place. They're not, especially initially, they're not on the earth, so they're in a different physical place. So why not Pluto? Let's go with it. Probably not Daleville, Virginia. It's just a guess of mine, but probably not Daleville, Virginia. But I appreciate that question. I agree completely with your premise on that this would put them in a different place there. Yeah, fully human and fully God. Thanks, Axioff. And Axioff puts a note here, Jesus in the New Jerusalem. Maybe sort of, kind of, but I don't think so. Here's where I would argue against that. It appears that there's a new heaven and a new earth, new heavens, new earth, and New Jerusalem. And I'm going to take the word new in, again, its most literal sense to say that John is looking into the future and there is this New Jerusalem that's not there yet. So one of the issues that makes is we often even, I'll say joke about, I don't know if it's the right word there, but old so-and-so died and went to the pearly gates. Well, the pearly gates are the New Jerusalem, which are in the future. So a person who dies today, let's assume they're a believer in Christ and that they go to be with the Lord. But that's in, let's just call it the heavenly throne room, wherever that is. Probably not Daleville, Virginia, and probably not Pluto. But they go there. You know, there's an interesting passage. Lucas, see if you can find it for me. There's an interesting passage in the book of Ezekiel that talks about something about the north, about coming out of the north, the Lord coming out of the north, something like that, which has this intriguing little, it's talking about the Lord, and I don't think it's talking about the North Pole, but it seems to imply there's a location, there is a place that is there, and this is where he is coming out of. What is that passage?
This one says 1:4.
Ezekiel 1:4, perhaps. Yeah, okay. I think there's a couple of them, but this one actually works. I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north. Now that one, because here he is, if we back up a little bit, he's by the river Chabar, and so it just could be to the north of the river. So, you know, I was in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Habar. The hand of the Lord was upon me. I looked, a whirlwind came out of the north. See if you find another one that speaks of out of the north in a little bit different manner there that we can't put to, it doesn't contextually fit there. But even if we don't find that passage, it could even be Isaiah. Who knows? I know it's in there somewhere. Dake. You remember Dake? What was his name? The Dake Study Bible? Now, Dake was a charismatic, old-time Pentecostal, I think is the neighborhood you'd put him in. He wrote a study Bible, and of course, you know, he took a more Pentecostal view. But a good old-time Pentecostal also was largely a biblical literalist. In fact, maybe more so than an evangelical today. Take a conservative Southern Baptist who's, I take it by the word. Well, not really. Finis, I think is how you pronounce that. Thanks, Bob. Finis Dake. Finis. The charismatics take the Bible very literally. The Pentecostal would be a better term for him. The Pentecostal take the word very literally. They just don't rightly divide it. That is, they don't put us outside of that dimension, and therefore that Pentecostal dimension, and therefore, you know, those gifts are for us. But they take it more literally than your average Southern Baptist, I would say. So because of that, some of the old-time Pentecostal, you can learn some things from them. You just have to realize, okay, they're not going to divide some of this, and that would cause a little bit of issue in the final interpretation. But Finis Dake actually wrote some about this, and it has some interesting things to say. Did we find that?
Isaiah 14:13.
Isaiah, okay. Isaiah, Ezekiel, you know, it's all kind of close. For thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend unto heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, I will sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Now, this is talking about what? The king of Babylon, I believe, or the king of Tyre 1. Lucifer is what we would interpret it as. So, here, I will sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Now, what does that all mean? Put that together, and I would encourage you, even if you're looking at that, Isaiah 14:13, try to follow through some cross-references and see what you get there to see if there's any other ideas. What's going on here with the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north? Now, we won't try to pinpoint the coordinates of heaven today, but I do think, to come back into Donald's question here, that you have, thanks for clarifying they, God the Father and Jesus have a physical location now. And I think we would include the angels with that. They have a physical location now. And so they're not, again, in the twilight zone. They're in a physical location. And so, being in that physical location, where is it? a lot of people would just say, who knows? Nobody knows. And there is a sense in which that's true, and I respect it. But there's also some of these intriguing kind of things about the sides of the north. You know, some things that just give us a little bit of hint into that. Now, Donald also adds to this, perhaps another dimension. When it comes to dimensions, I'm old enough to remember the fifth dimension. Up, up and away in my beautiful balloon. Isn't that who sang that? Did I get it right? When it comes to dimensions, maybe there's a lot we don't really know here. So when we say another dimension, we might be making stuff up. We might have to make stuff up just because we don't know if there is another dimension. Is it a physical dimension? If it's in another dimension, can we call it a physical dimension because it's so outside of our zone? But I think in some way you might be able to say that and perhaps put that dimension onto another, still another physical dimension. I think we got to go with physical. I think that physical has to have time and space in which to dwell. So where he is, there is time and space. Now, sometimes, and I argue against this once again in my systematic theology, I argue that God is not outside of time. He can't be because he's physical. And that requires both time and space. Now, that doesn't mean he counts time the same way we do, or he cares about time the same way we do. You know, if you got a 3, 4, 5-year-old, they're in a different time zone, a different time dimension. They don't understand time. They can't figure, a child that age can't really figure out yesterday and tomorrow, and you know, it's kind of fun to watch them progress through that and think, okay, this before that, and they put time together. It may be that we're kind of stuck with this dimension thing. Thank you, Randy. Psalm 48, verse 2. There's a good cross-reference for us. And coming from Corsicana, Texas, beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. Now, how much are we talking about Jerusalem, and how much are we gone beyond that? And we get, you know, Jerusalem on the sides of the north. How do you completely tie that in with the city of Jerusalem? Becomes challenging. Felicia says, maybe Gog of Ezekiel 37 is from the same north, and this is a heaven come to earth battle with the fallen evil hosts joining with the evil nations they control, the iron and the clay that mingle but don't mix. Ezekiel 38, actually. You know, that's an interesting proposal to throw in there. Ezekiel 38, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. And somewhere there is an actual reference to the north. And so if you then make Gog, we don't really know who he is. We have lots of speculation. But if, as Felicia suggests, you make Gog the fallen evil hosts, either Satan or his army, and make that connection, the iron and clay that mingle and don't mix, tying into Daniel, is an intriguing possibility, shall we say. Let's go back to Randy's Psalm 48:2. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth, is Mount Zion. Randy points out, beautiful for situation. That in and of itself has to do with being strategically placed, as Randy says. The Hebrew word mathar, well set, strategically placed. It's not a word that you would use for what would you call it? The ethereal zone. Back to Donald. Before we move on another dimension, if you're thinking that way, the sides of the north, as again we have right here in Psalm as well as Isaiah, on the sides of the north, what exactly is the meaning there? Could have something to do. We ought to check into that word sides, see if we can get that in dimensional. Again, I'm always a little hesitant with dimensional because I don't know how much we just make up. Well, all that dealt from Miss Bubba trying to get this issue of Nephilim. But now let's go to Arkansas, which is not on the sides of the north, but the beautiful Buffalo National River. Deb says in Judges 9:23, I'm going to pull up, I got two scriptures I see here. We're going to pull them up and take a look. In Judges 9:23 and 1 Samuel 16:14. Let's stop right there, read those. Then God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem, and the men of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech. In 1 Samuel 16:14, the Spirit of the Lord himself departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. Okay, so we got an evil spirit. God sent an evil spirit, and basically the same thing in 1 Samuel, an evil spirit from the Lord. Why, the question is, why did God send? By the way, why questions are always the hardest ones to answer. Why did God send evil spirits or a tormenting spirit? It's actually singular in both cases if it makes a difference. Could sending an evil spirit be considered one's conscience in turmoil, or is it the consequence of rejecting God and exposes that person to evil influences? Can I assume God uses tormenting, let me say that correctly. Can I assume that God uses tormenting, sending evil spirits to accomplish his purpose today? Okay, certainly God did send an evil spirit. We do want to recognize that in the King James, evil is not always wicked. Evil is hurtful, harmful, negative. It has a broad range of meaning in 1611. We have a narrow range of meaning that puts it in wicked or satanic, wholly corrupt. We could take it as a treacherous spirit, a tormenting spirit, a disheartening even spirit. So lighten the word evil just a little bit so that you don't read he automatically sent a demon. Maybe he sent a demon. I mean, I think we would certainly agree that the demons are under his control. But I don't think we have to take that as he sent a demon. So he sends let's go ahead and use for just a moment the word tormenting. He sent a tormenting spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. I don't know if tormenting would be the best word there, because maybe, between these two parties, maybe we would just want to take evil right here and say, a spirit of disharmony. How's that? And then we come over here, the Spirit of the Lord. Notice there's, one capital, one's lowercase. That just helps us to say, hey, stop and interpret this a little bit differently. The Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a tormenting spirit from the Lord troubled him. I'd hate to be redundant, but a troubling spirit troubled him. A disheartening spirit troubled him. I think we can probably take both of these and say, this is, as you say here, the consequences of rejecting God. Let's add to that Philippians, what is it? Philippians 4:6, perhaps, that says, get it up on the screen here for you. There we go. Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your request be made known to God, and the peace of God. If we take peace as the opposite of evil, they didn't have a peaceful spirit between them. He didn't have a peaceful spirit in his walk and in his demeanor. So the consequence of walking away from God, in a sense, ignoring him, is that you don't have the peace which passeth all understanding. Now, in that way, we've taken the demonic out of it, which I kind of lean towards. You might want to argue, Finest Dake might want to argue, no, this is a demonic spirit in terms of, it's a demon. But I think we could say, hey, there's an evil spirit about what they're doing. There is this person is so troubled because of relationships, finances, the state of the world, whatever. That's an evil spirit within them. I think, I might be accused of watering this down too much, but I think we could take this evil spirit in the Old Testament to say it is the opposite of the peace of God which passeth all understanding. So in this sense, to go back and use Deb's wording, could sending an evil spirit be considered one's conscience in turmoil, or the consequences of rejecting God? I think there's a good sense of saying yes. I tell you what, Luca, if you can, look up a few other passages that we'll just look at quickly and randomly at evil spirits in the Old Testament. An evil spirit. Maybe you should look that phrase, an evil spirit, so that we don't actually get into absolutely the demonic. But an evil spirit. We've got the Saul ones, and that may be where most of them come. And we've got Judges 9:23. Can we get some others just to see if we can put this together and say, look, the pattern here is they had the peace of God that passes all understanding, and then they don't have the peace of God that passes understanding. They had the Spirit of the Lord, and they don't have the Spirit of the Lord. What's one or two we can look at?
So far, I just have the Saul and Judges one.
Oh, okay. He finds the same too. If we find any more, let's take a look at that. So I should get you a bell to ring when you're ready. That's what we need. Foghorn for me, a bell for you. There we go. Now, if we take it that way, which we've taken a little bit of the mystical out of it there, other than to say, hey, when we walk with the Lord in the light of his word, what a glory he sheds on the way. Trying to remember the song, is that old hymn? Or to use the words of Philippians chapter 4, when we lay everything down at his feet, he gives us the peace of God that passes all understanding. When we take it back unto ourselves, when we turn away from the Lord, an evil spirit comes upon us. We need to take a deep breath. We need to get back to the Lord. We need to walk in his word. We need to calm down, let him handle it. We need the peace of God. So I would say that, okay, it's a consequence of rejecting God. More so than being filled with the Spirit, baptized with the Spirit, some of the other terms we might use in different context. So in that case, can I assume God uses a tormenting spirit, evil spirit in that sense, to accomplish his purposes today? I might agree there that it is. I think what I would say is it's baked in the cake a little bit. What I mean to say by that is, if you are trusting the Lord, he does still today give a peace. And when we quit trusting the Lord, there does, I think, I can only go from my experience and, the secondhand experiences of those around me, but I think that's the point at which we do begin to toss and turn and be in turmoil and, get high blood pressure and ulcers. And so that can be a guard for us to say, hey, why aren't you having the peace of God which passeth all understanding? Maybe God has sent an evil spirit, not in the way we so often take it, as the spirit of Python is upon you, but in the sense of, hey, your heart is troubled. Again, I'm mixing a lot of dispensations here, but Jesus says in John 14, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. If I go, I'll come again. He kind of calms them down a little bit with some information, with some encouragement, with a little bit of a pastoral response there, in a sense through that. Did we get any other evil spirits?
There's the lying spirit.
Where's that?
1 Kings 22:19.
1 Kings 22:19 on the left side of the screen. He said, hear thou therefore the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the hosts of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left. And the Lord said, who shall persuade Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said on this manner, another said on that manner. And there came forth a spirit and stood before the Lord and said, I will persuade him. The Lord said unto him, wherewith? And he said, I will go forth, and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. He said, thou shalt persuade him, and prevail also. Go forth and do so. What an interesting little passage on the little heavenly deliberation going on there. So here is an actual spirit that goes forth and says, hey, let me do something. I'll do it. And the Lord says, how? I'll send a lying spirit. Now, that is a little more direct than I was talking about with sort of baked in the cake, but that certainly does show the Lord sending, I'm interpreting this a little bit, not sending directly his spirit down to them, but the spirit is going to say, let them lie. And they lie. Now, does that happen today? I'm gonna say, because of my position on the silence of God, that's a little more. Some of the things that have the seeds have already been planted and they begin to go. And like in 2 Thessalonians, I'm going to use this a little out of context, but you reject the truth. What happens when you reject the truth? You start lying. Good question there. Deb, I appreciate that. Thank you very much for it. And God bless you. Rudy brings up 2 Corinthians 12:7. This may be just a little bit delayed here. So check the context here and see which question we are. Oh, even ties in here. Lest I should be exalted above measure, through the abundance of revelations, there was given me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan, to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above all measure. So here is, shall we say, a spirit that comes. This spirit seems to be pretty clearly defined. The messenger of Satan, which is a little harder to take as, let's say, a lying spirit or a tormenting spirit, an unpeaceful spirit. The messenger of Satan almost does sound like demonic. A thorn in the flesh makes it sound a little more like this is a physical, real thing that he was given. Now, this is Paul. Again, going back to Deb's question, can I assume God uses tormenting, sending evil spirits to accomplish his purpose today? If we want to say he did it for Paul, we follow Paul. Now, we would run into some problems there because God did a lot of things with Paul he doesn't do for us. But that could come into the equation there and bring that about. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Gerard, you have a question, but I don't fully understand it because it has a lot of arrows and dots. But I'll read it. Joel 3:2. I will gather all nations, bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and plead with them there for my people and my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. Joel 3:2, parted my, God's land. And then Gerard mentions September 22nd, 2025, UN General Assembly. Gerard, you have so many abbreviations that it makes it difficult. UNGA, I'm going to take that as UN General Assembly. But it could be UNGeorgia. Recognized officially the Palestinian state. Well, I don't know that you could put it as 9/22/25 because they've been pro-Palestinian state for a long, long time. As a matter of fact, the original UN declaration that started the state of Israel gave Israel part of it and the Palestinian state part of it back in 1948, actually a few years earlier than that. So the UN has always been a two-state solution from the day it began talking about this. This didn't happen in 2025. And then we've got two lines, two arrows, and a bunch of 2550 is 1260 plus 1290 days to 9/15/2032. So if you make all those assumptions that what the UN did on September 22nd, and that you should add 2,550 days, then that does come to September 15th, 16th, 2032. The question then goes on Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, falls on 9/15/16/2032. Well, that maybe does in the rabbinical calendar, but the rabbinical calendar is made up. God's calendar has to do with the month of Abib and whether or not harvest is ready to go. So, honestly, I think the rabbinical calendar is not worth a warm bucket of spit. It's easy for them, but it means absolutely nothing for whatever good is going to happen. But let's see, Yom Kippur, 2032, we know that the Lord Jesus will put then his feet on the Mount of Olives. So what are the odds? I'm going to say virtually zero. Because it's all made up in a bunch of garbage. That's why. Virtually zero. You cannot determine when the Lord is going to do these things. You're going to be wrong every time. Yeah, I had a conversation just this morning. I'm not sure I logged in and can show you. Maybe I'm not. On X, there's this guy that's been talking about, the Lord's coming, 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 the Lord's coming. Every single post, 8, 10 a day. And the Lord's coming soon, the Lord's coming soon, the Lord's coming soon. I said, the Lord may come back in 10,000 years. Live every day like the Lord's coming, and live every day like you're going to have to make it all the way through the day and into tomorrow. You're not doing yourself any favors. Live to the full every day. Maybe the Lord will come today. Who knows? Let's try the old Christian curmudgeon. Good to see you. Pray tell, is there a preponderance of plausibility that these particular passages can be pieced together? Whew. Let us see. 3 passages. Can they be pieced together? Daniel 9:27, so this also goes in the realm of prophecy. And 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3. Again, that's a prophetic kind of passage. And Hebrews chapter 6, verse 6 is a falling away passage. Let's see what we got here. He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. In the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Okay. 2 Thessalonians. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there cometh falling away first, and the man of sin be revealed. Hebrews 6. If they shall fall away, to renew them again unto repentance, seeing they crucify to themselves the Son of God afresh, and put him to open shame. And it goes on speaking of some of the things that then happen. Now, can you put these together? Here we've got let's just take the he. And then let's come to 2 Thessalonians and put this as the man of sin and say these are the same 2 people. A little bit of connection there. He's the son of perdition. Let's see. Speaks about the overspreading of abominations. So we've got some connection there. Now here, we've got a falling away, and we've got an if they shall fall away. Should those be connected, which then could connect all three of them? Reason this could be connected is because the falling away is related to the revelation of the man of sin. Now, if we would want to define who they are. I think that they're described in, verses 4 and 5. I think it's the nation of Israel in the first century, but let's pretend like we don't know that. If the people who are going to fall away, if they do fall away, in which we would take that as a when they shall fall away, renewing them again to repentance. And 2 Thessalonians does put down a few verses, or is it up a few verses? It puts in the deception that would come upon them. And with that deception, to renew them again to repentance, basically it says is impossible. You could possibly do it. I'm just not sure I would make that connection in with Hebrews. I think that Hebrews does use the term falling away. I'm not sure it's the same Greek word, but I'm not even sure that would make a difference if it was a different word. But I'm not sure I would connect that falling away with this falling away. I think here we might have things that are similar, aren't the same. So I think I would put Daniel 9 and 2 Thessalonians 2:3 together. I'm not yet seeing that I would put Hebrews 6:6 together. Now, if I have missed a connection there, be sure to bring that back in, because the curmudgeon does also say, I have found the cure for patience. I'll let you know what it is next time I write in. Ladies and gentlemen, here we've got a promised cure for patience. I wonder if that's actually a cure for impatience. Do we want to be cured of patience? We might need a cure for impatience. Possibly there. Well, I am out of time. How about that? And I got to go study 1 Thessalonians today and get that all taken care of. Looking forward to that tonight, about 10 minutes after 6 Mountain Time. If you happen to be in the area, come over for some Sloppy Joes. We've got Sloppy Joes at 5 o'clock, and then we'll do Bible study at 6-ish, right in there. I do have a number of questions that came in today. As a matter of fact, several of them came in during the program. My apologies for not getting to those. And I've got a few questions that also came in yesterday that I've got to, get. The cure for impatience is put a question up for me and wait for the answer. But I'm glad we're always stacked up with questions here. That's a good sign. Thanks for being with us here today on this day. Go to dispensationalpublishing.com. Got a few good things up there for you, and some more on the way here soon. But RandyWhiteMinistries.org. We got all the good stuff to share with you. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you soon. God bless.